now listen to this. Goodbye. But she took the bait. You know, he laid out a trap, a snare. And this is the same way. You know, this principle, what we see here, is the same way it works in you and the same way it works in me, in the mind, see. You think we all think that, we have control of our mind. You do have some control. You have a free will, but things come into your mind that are not from you. And this is the way Satan works. So he brings in this thought. And you can see just how sneaky he is. You know, he just asks a little question. He asks a little question. And then for all of us, we've all fallen into the same kind of trouble in the same kind of way. Okay, so Satan comes to touch her mind. That's in verse 1. Then in verse 2 and 3 begins to talk to her some more. And he says this. He says to her, her answer to that question was, we may eat the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, you shall not eat it, nor shall you touch it, lest you die. You know, she fell for it. She fell for his little lie because it caused her to doubt, had her reconsider what God had spoken to her. Basically, the picture was God placed them in the garden, told them, you can do all these things. You can eat all these fruit, but that one there, don't eat it. You know, and if you ever think about it, think about your own life, you're sitting there and all of a sudden, you got all kinds of stuff. Let me tell you, everybody, we live in America. We are so blessed. We are so blessed. So blessed. We have way more things than anybody else. We have freedom to thank the Lord that we can worship here this morning. A lot of people can't do that. We have so many good things. But what do we think about? The thing we don't have. You know, we think, God doesn't love me. Why me? Why me? How come I don't got that stuff? You ever think that way? I think that way. I think all of you think that way. Sometimes. You do. We all do. How come it's so hard? I say that sometimes to myself. Yeah. And you know what? Realize the devil's just there. That's right. It's really bad. You got it rough. Your world's tough, and God's against you. Don't trust in God. Trust in yourself. You have to take things into your own hands. Yeah, that's the devil. You know, trusting in yourself, that is really appreciated in America. I'm not saying turn into a wimp, and don't do anything. I'm not that. Don't keep things in balance. But basically, everyone, a faith in God is where we want to be, not a faith in ourselves. Not a faith in ourselves. So Satan's not done yet. He's just started it. And then he stirs up her emotions. See, the first thought comes to the mind. He gets the mind going, I got to reconsider God. And then he says to her in verse 4, he says, you shall not surely die. Oh, that's the trap. You shall not surely. He completely contradicts God's word. You shall not die. Basically she's caught at this point. And now he stirs up her emotions. In verse 5, he says, look at this. For God knows that in the day you eat from it, your eyes will be open, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. You could just see Eve go, ooh, God, he's not for me. He's not for me. And if he's not for me, I got to take things into my own hands. I gotta take things into my own hands and take what is mine. And then it goes like this. Satan seduces Eve. And in verse 5 and 6 it says, so when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, that it was pleasant to the eye and desirable to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. She also gave her husband with her, and he ate. Eventually, see, he seduced her will to take. That's how it works. Gets in the mind, you get the desire. Ooh, yeah, I want that. Then you make the choice. I'm going to get it. It's mine. And I make the choice. And she grabbed it. And then her wimpy little husband, Adam, sitting there the whole time. Duh. And he takes the fruit and he eats too. He didn't say one thing. He's just as wrong. Passively sitting there doing nothing. That wasn't right either. Anyway, you see the fall of man. Why, everyone? Because they depended on themselves. They trusted in themselves, like they have a better thought than God. That happens to a lot of us. We get self-deceived and make our own choice. Henceforth, the fall of man. And that principle is played out over and over again in our lives. Many times we have a choice, and we choose our way. So that's the first characteristic. The second one is this: a life depending on self. Okay, if we would look and read Numbers 13:31 together, please. But the men who had gone up with him said, for they are stronger than we. Okay, this is a picture. I'd encourage you, like some of these stories, I didn't have enough real estate, but I'd encourage you, especially you in the growth groups, read these stories. This is a really good story. Okay, the picture is this. I'll give you a little snapshot. Moses and the children of Israel are on their way to the promised land. They're in the wilderness. And God says, you know what? Take 12 men, 12 spies, one from each of the tribes. Send them into the good land. Have them spy out the land. See who's there. That's the land I'm going to give you. So he sends 12 men in. They all come back. Yeah, it's just like God said. It's an awesome land. I mean, they had grapes this big. You know, they had to carry them on a stick in between men. That's a big fruit. It's a big fruit. It's a good place. Lots of riches of food. It's going to be a good place. Everything God promised, they said, yes, it's there. But then they came back and said, there's men that are giants there. We're like grasshoppers. You know, and there was two guys there, Joshua and Caleb. They had absolute dependence on God. But the other 10, you see what they say, they came back and they said, we're not able to go up against the people. They're stronger than we are. You know what happened? They looked at themselves. They started going, can I take that big giant? Can I take that 9, 12-foot giant down? Oh, I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble. Yet God promised them. That's the land I'm going to give you. The dependence is not on us. The dependence is on God. And again, their self-assessment, they made their own assessment. God told them, that's the land I'm going to give you. That's his exact words. I'm going to give you. That doesn't mean like, oh, we just kind of like passively come there and then God just like gives it to us. We got to go forward. This is a really good principle. We got to go forward in faith. God is going to give it to us. But they were self-deceived in their assessment. They looked at it and go, whoa, them dudes are big. I'm in trouble. And instead, you know, they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. Actually, none of them made it in except for Joshua and Caleb. God